Hello everybody, just making some updates on some projects that I have going on. If you remember, one of the projects was the 1940s, 1950s football of my father's. I have cleaned that football up. I did manage to restore it to some of its original color. It was a dark brown, if you recall. It also had some broken lacing on it, and it was deflated because the bladder wouldn't hold air. In cleaning it, we did discover that at some point it was probably lying in some oil on the garage floor, and that oil caused some very deep scarring of the leather, and it saturated and it ate away the leather. So it's left some pretty profound markings. That oil could not be scrubbed away. There's no way to remove it. So that's some permanent damage that is just going to have to remain there. We have been putting conditioner on this ball. I've been conditioning it every couple of days, trying to let it soak in to bring back the pliability. This ball was really hard. It could not be, the leather could not be squeezed. It was hard as a rock. I have brought back some of that pliability. The ball is now, the leather is now pliable. But you can still see it is significantly damaged. And there's just no way to bring that original leather back, so it's always going to be like that. Originally, like I said, I told you that we replaced the bladder. The bladder was in pretty bad condition. It was leaking around the valve, and I actually tore it when I was taking it out, so it really wasn't this bad. It was just leaking around the actual valve area here. But when I replaced the bladder, I was only able to fill this football up just partially with air because I was concerned about the dryness of the ball. I really didn't want the ball to split. In fact, when I relaced it, if you take a look at the lacing here, you'll notice that there's a wave in the way the lacing is. Typically when you lace a football, there's no wave in there. That the lacing follows the contour of the football perfectly. Well, the wave here is caused because the lacing is not pulled tight. And the reason that in this particular instance this lacing is not pulled tight is because as I began to pull it tight, the leather actually began to rip. And I don't know if you can see right there. That was one of the first two holes I started lacing, and that's where it started to rip, right there. So as I began to lace this ball up, I knew I needed to lay back a little bit on the lacing. And that's what I did. So even though the ball is laced, it's laced tight. It's not as laced as tight as a ball should be. But it is laced well enough to where you could actually still go out and play with this ball. And then when I filled it up with air, even though I keep conditioning this ball, and this ball has become far more pliable. You can really, this ball, I mean, you can really squeeze the leather now where you couldn't do that before. I'm still reluctant to fill it up with air because even though I have ensured that I get conditioner into the strings of this ball to rehydrate them, I still don't trust it filling this ball up full with air, 13 pounds of air, wouldn't explode this ball. So at this point, we're going to leave it just mildly filled. You can still play with it. I mean, it's still firm enough to play, but it's just not fully it's not just completely filled with air. So, at this point, I'm going to say we're going to call this project complete. We have not yet identified the ball as far as the manufacturer. I do know that this particular valve, this particular bladder, was manufactured by the Seamless Rubber Company. Looking at the valve, I tracked down the patent, and I know that this valve, and the rubber valve itself, was patented sometime in 1934 and 1936. So I know that this bladder was used in balls between after 1934 and 1936. It was most likely placed in balls around in the mid 40s to 50s. So we're still thinking this is a mid 40s to early 1950s football. We did find out that the Seamless Rubber Company did make bladders for Wilson Sporting Goods. But that doesn't necessarily mean this is a Wilson football. So, with that said, I'm still trying to track down who the manufacturer of this ball is, and I'll keep on that until I figure out who it is. But until then, I'm going to call this project complete. I'll go ahead and send this back to my dad. He can put it up on a shelf and he can admire it if he'd like to. So we'll call this one done. Until our next project, I'll talk to you later. This football set